find ways to even improve on their scores after they're done. We decided to take inspiration from that and create a momentum platformer where, at a glance, the game looks like it's something that anyone can pick up and play. But once you start playing and you start witnessing this really meaningful story, you start to develop this passion for, hey, maybe I can cut a couple seconds off of each of these levels.
Yeah, there's so much to unpack there in terms of the mechanics and the story. I want to get to all of it, but when I look at this, it looks to me like something that might be fairly challenging. So can you tell us what a momentum-based platformer means, what the main mechanics are that someone's going to have to try to accomplish here?
Yeah, one of the main things that we really focused on is that the game's the three core values are the freedom, flight, and flow of motion. So when you go through the game, you realize that even when you die, for example, right there, you don't actually feel very punished about it, and you just kind of continue going forward. It's also like the freedom of flight is a main thing for us as well. Having that strong momentum-based core engine that we built. Whenever you have a flight like that, it's always going to be continuing forward, and it depends on kind of what momentum you built up before and all that.
Is there anything in the game that can change your momentum and how it affects the game?
Yeah, so there are multiple different things. One of the main core design pillars we wanted to implement is that we wanted to make it something more like Mario and less like Metroid, I guess. So throughout the game, you actually do not receive new powers. The idea is that the mechanics are so complex that the first level of Mario compared to the last level of Mario, as a player, you're going to feel differently because of how much better you're getting. So throughout the game, you'll be noticing different types of challenges that before you thought were impossible, but now because you're getting so much better, you can achieve them.
Awesome.
Is the game very linear in that way? Are we going to be taken through, or could we choose our own path? How does that work?
Yeah, so the level design itself is very much linear. However, there will be a very, I guess, a minimal and also kind of abstract overarching story that will tell you a little bit more about the universe you're in, the world you're in, and the characters that you're interacting with. And in that regard, there will be some different challenges that you'll see throughout the different worlds and choosing kind of which paths you want to go with the different levels.
We've seen a lot of environmental hazards so far. Will we also encounter enemies?
So enemies are actually pretty later on in the game. There are certain I guess boss fights is the best way to look at it. We made this game with the focus of platforming, not so much combat.
Right.
So one of the things that I can say right now is that you'll never really be fighting in this game, no matter what you do. So it's mostly just kind of movement and understanding the world.
Of course, the world is beautiful. It's very geometric and almost Mayan-esque. Can you tell me a little bit about that direction?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we first started the game, as an indie team, we had to think about what are the lowest cost, art styles that we can possibly do with, a small team like ours working on this. And one of the things that we decided to look into was a combination of Mayan, Southeast and Southeast Asian architecture. So there's a lot of Myanmar, a lot of like Native American kind of themes. And in each of the different worlds, there are three different major worlds in this game. For example, the first one that you saw was a forest kingdom that had kind of crumbled and was taken over by nature. This one now, we're in a water kingdom that's very much inspired by Spanish architecture as well.
I love that you can tell that there's more to the buildings by like having them be like a few shades lighter than the foreground. So it isn't just this flat surface that you're seeing, it's actually a full building that's been kind of like cut through. That's really cool.
It's so beautiful.
Yeah, one of the kind of tricky things that we had to play around with was actually just that kind of 3D feel. We wanted the game to live in 2 dimension, but at the same time make it feel like there's just a whole vast world behind you, that you're exploring. The main thing here, has to do with transparency. So something, if you noticed, is you don't see any transparent layers throughout the game, and that actually made art really difficult because it's hard to kind of create details sometimes.
So I kind of want to dive into what we've hinted at with the story because we're, of course, curious who is the king? Why are we the king's bird? Are we looking for the king's bird? Tell us a little bit about the story.
Yeah, so I can tell you a little bit about the beginning of the story very easily since that's kind of how the game starts. You play as a girl named Quill who is trapped in this kingdom ruled by a tyrant. This tyrant is kind of like the king in this regard. He has a very strong obsession about keeping people in his kingdom kind of trapped. So he built this cage out of this mystical, this white kind of glowy power that you see here. So this cage was built by this king, and he kind of keeps all of the citizens trapped in there. So eventually, you find the ability to kind of escape from this kingdom and go out there and kind of explore in all these different areas. Over the different areas, you'll be able to see how the world has changed outside and is very different from the kind of country you grew up in. However, as time goes on, you are looking for ways to kind of create the same kind of freedom for other people. So the Quill finds the ability to take down that barrier to free all of the citizens in the kingdom.
Wow.
The problem is that as soon as she takes down the barrier, she realizes that there's actually a reason why that barrier was erected in the first place. So the entire premise of the story is that we want to explore the duality, the nature between chaos and order and tyranny and freedom.
Oh, wow.
Really cool. What an ambitious approach.
Yeah. And I'm curious, tell us about her flight. How can she fly? What is the kind of white power that goes behind her, this glowy thing?
Yeah, this is kind of the inspiration behind Journey. This level is actually, so we kind of jumped really quickly into later parts of the game. This is about 2/3 of the way into the game at this point in terms of difficulty. Anyway, so the white glow is actually very much inspired by the scarf in something like Journey.
Oh, cool.
Where you have a certain amount of limited power for flight, but there's actually a lot of aerial canceling as well. So it's not very noticeable, but whenever you touch any platform, either a ceiling or a floor or a wall, you will reset your power so that you can keep on flying. And this flight, you see how she ran out of flight there just now.
Yeah.
But I love it. You get up high and then you go all the way down, so you build up that momentum. Like you
Yep.
said, this is a momentum-based game. The light posts and the glowing signals or sigils that we're seeing. Can you tell me about those?
Yeah, so the light posts are just checkpoints. They're actually pretty straightforward. When we first started the game, we wanted this game to be so non-intrusive that we actually didn't have those light posts, and eventually we realized that just through playtesting that people want to know where they're supposed to go. I guess in a way it was also kind of inspired by one of our favorite games, The Beginner's Guide, with the light post, being kind of the end to everything. But with that said, the sigils that you're seeing they're actually not final art at this stage. They are just kind of some collectibles that people can kind of go for, especially for hardcore gamers who want to get every single collectible
Definitely.
and get the highest score that they possibly could. Well,
speaking of
the levels.
The hardcore gamers and the secrets, are there little things hidden that you can't really see unless you explore it a little bit?
So we do have a few. We're planning for a few sigils here and there that are just a little bit too hidden for a casual gamer to find. But the game in its nature is not necessarily an exploration type game. It's a little bit more focused on honing your craft and exploring a narrative. So yeah, I mean we're not gonna have too much of it. It's more of a bonus for those who are really patient.
Speaking of hardcore gamers, I look at something like this and I imagine that a speedrunner would be really interested in a game like this. Did you consider that in the development, or have you heard any interest from people who love speedrunning?
Yeah, absolutely. This is definitely a lot of Dustforce fans would tell us that this is something that they want to play. We are planning to add the system of online replays and online high scores,
cool.
so you can see how other people did, just like what Dustforce did, because that's the reason why we ended up spending so much time ourselves playing games like those.
Right, that makes a lot of sense. Yep. And what are some of the things that a gamer should be really good at if they want to be really good at this game? What are they going to really hone as they learn this movement?
So I guess one of the things is, when you think about any kind of precision platformer, it's all about response time, reaction speed. If you think about Super Meat Boy, for example, you have your projectiles coming at you. You have to respond as quickly as possible. One of the unique things about this game is that everything is 100% static, which with the art style and kind of the freedom of motion, you don't really notice it as much.
Yeah.
But everything in the game is actually already predetermined. So with that said, everything, it's almost like playing a piano compared to playing a game in a lot of ways, where you know exactly what you should be doing, and it's all about just kind of perfecting that craft.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And of course, we're here on Twitch, so there are going to be a lot of streamers who might be interested in playing this game. Any tips for them about, showing this off to their audience or doing this kind of as entertainment as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those things that you could really get the audience involved, right?
Yeah.
Because everyone's going to be competing with each other regarding kind of what high scores you have, whether or not you found all the collectibles, and what are some optimal routes. I mean, for this level, for example, there's like even in our office, everyone plays it differently. So it's just going to be one of those things that's going to generate conversation.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It looks gorgeous, and I'm super excited to learn where we can keep up with it, where we can look forward to seeing the game as it comes out. Where can people find more?
Yeah, so the game is currently on Steam wishlist. It's not out yet, so you can wishlist the game on Steam. And we're planning on releasing the game.